Hello, I'm Graham Fitch, coming to you from Steinway Hall in London for Pianist Magazine, and I'm going to be talking about how you can sharpen up your rhythm. I think it's fair to say that every musician has to be able to hold on to a pulse. Now that pulse is not, as I hope to illustrate, a metronomic, strict, rigid pulse, but something that's flexible, a little bit like the human heart. It can move a little bit one way or the other, and music that is played metronomically is really not expressive, and it's not what we want in the end. But we do need to have that regular pulse, and I've got a few ideas for you. First thing is, some music sounds very free. I've got an example here. My first example is from the Opus 109 Sonata of Beethoven, and I'm just going to go straight to bars 11 and 12. I'm going to show you something that is very, very helpful. Leon Fleischer always recommended this to us, which was to count out aloud as we play. So if I give you an example of this, there's lots of notes, but they're all very carefully organized by Beethoven. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. Now, if I couldn't have counted exactly where the subdivisions of the main beats came in that torrent of demi-semiquavers, it would show me that I wasn't really quite sure how my pulse, my inner pulse, fitted together with the notes on the page. So that's an excellent thing to do, often far better than a metronome, because you can bend the pulse there if you need to. You wouldn't need to in that particular example probably very much, but you might, and it would be possible to feel the pulse naturally ebbing and flowing. So if you do have problems with your pulse, this is a really good thing to practice. It's actually quite a simple thing to do, but very effective. Just to take a scale and divide the beat first of all in ones, then in twos, then in threes, then in fours, then in fives if you can. But getting up to 4 is good, because again, every musician needs to be able to divide a beat into its subdivisions. So I've got my trusty metronome app going here at 80, and I'm first of all going to play 1 click per note. Just 1 octave. Very meditative. Now twice as fast. Now in triplets. Now in fours. Very good exercise to practice for the stability of the pulse with subdivisions. Now, of course, we can use our metronome for to get faster. Let's say I've got a little example here from Variation 4 of the Mendelssohn Variations Sérieuses, which would go this sort of speed. But let's say I wasn't quite at that point, and I could play it, let's say, that speed, and let me find that pulse. 4 taps, it comes out to 103. I'm just going to round that down because I kind of like round numbers. And then I'd practice it at that speed a few times. Being very, very precise that the pulse was maintained, so that in other words, the notes come exactly with the clicks. Then I go up maybe 5 beats per minute and do again. You got the idea, I'm sure, and then another 5 beats. You could do it 2 beats if you wanted. Ruth Slenczynska talks about this in her lovely book. Apparently she got this practice tool from Rachmaninoff, when she was a student of Rachmaninoff. He believed this was a great way to get something from slow to fast. There are other ways of getting something from slow to fast, but for the purposes of this demonstration, that's a good thing to know about. The other thing you can use the metronome for when you're marrying together the notes with the pulse, you can do random metronomes from slow, maybe one slow one followed by a medium one and then a faster one, back to a slow one. Just dive around on the metronome. Now, I've got an example here, the Schubert Moments Musicaux, the first one, which if you listen to any recording of this by a recognized artist and you manage to get the metronome to fit together with the playing, you'll find that it doesn't stay together with the playing for more than a bar, maybe not even 2 bars. You would be out with the metronome, and there would be nothing wrong with your metronome, but it's just that the music cannot be confined. So this is how the music sounds. Now you probably want to spend a little longer, 1, 2, 3, before you came to the C. And I feel that there's just some movement through there. I hope that sounded natural to you, the way when I got to the pianissimo, I allowed the music to move forward. It's not that I was getting faster, I was allowing the music naturally to progress. I've got a string of quavers there, 8th notes, that has a direction forwards until I get to the dotted quarter, the dotted crotchet. And I'd want to take a little time over that. Now, it shouldn't sound like I'm out, but I would be out if I had the metronome on. So my point here is, because I do hear a lot of people practicing mechanically with a metronome, if you would practice regularly this piece with a metronome, you would iron out all those natural inflections of time that the music requires to be expressive. So just ask yourself, what am I using the metronome for when you practice? It's fine to use it, but use it discerningly. I've got an example here from the C minor prelude and fugue, well actually the prelude of Bach from Book 1, the Adagio spot, where suddenly the movement stops and we have this cadenza. Now I'm playing that with a certain freedom, but I need to know first, before I can be free, I need to know how to be strict. I think that's the general principle. But there's nothing really very much going on in the left hand apart from those chords. So how could I help a little bit with the pulse? Here's a possibility. What I'm going to do is to give a pulse with my left hand. I'm just going to play the C repeatedly. So I used my left hand as a kind of conductor, as a kind of metronome, if you will, but not a horribly obtrusive thing, because I could still be a little free if I wanted. So then maybe I could change the duration of my clicks. The idea? That's often a very handy way of keeping time. So let's come back to some counting aloud. The Appassionata Sonata of Beethoven, another Beethoven sonata, the Grave, not the Appassionata, I mean the Pathétique, the famous Pathétique, which when you get to this spot, bar 5, is clear because the left hand is playing those 16th notes, those semiquavers, that gives you that pulse. But I often hear performances where the opening phrase is played without any kind of feeling for the pulse. So come back to those hidden semiquavers and count them out. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and so I'm using the subdivisions of the beat to verbalize those and fitting my playing in around that. It's a very, very useful thing to do when you practice. I've got the famous Debussy prelude, The Girl with the Flaxen Hair, and we all know this piece. Here's another useful thing to do, conduct. Do you see how I'm keeping the rhythm alive in my body? What we don't want to do when we're playing the piano is to stop on a long note. So if I would do this, my body is frozen now. And then I've got to gauge, okay, it's about now, I think. And that note is disconnected from that note. But if I would just keep a little bit of motion, and that's exactly what a violinist string player would have to do to keep the bow moving. It's exactly what a wind player would have to do. They have to keep the breath going through the instrument. So what's the breath for us? The arm. I'm not talking about a huge movement. I'm just talking about a natural sense of feeling the length of that note in my body. Another thing is useful is to have a kind of sub-rhythm. So I have this cell, yum pa pa pam, which I feel in that long note. Yum pa pa pam, pa pa pam. And let's say I wanted to push through. I could still do that. And what that means is that when I land on that D flat, I'm keeping it alive, not only through my arm, in my arm, but also in my imagination with that little filler, rhythmic filler. It could be anything you want, it doesn't have to be what I did, but otherwise the music goes to sleep for that point. Or worse, or as bad, I should say, people come in at the wrong time with those 2 eighth notes at the end. Conducting is a very good thing to do. It doesn't have to be strict, academic conducting like this. It could be, you could be listening to a recording of something and allow your body just to express the qualities of the beats, the sort of energy, the mood of the music, just very informally to yourself. The other thing that's helpful, Dalcroze Eurythmics is a wonderful thing. If you can find a Dalcroze movement class in your area, do that. It's fantastic. The other thing you can do that's Dalcroze related is to walk the pulse. I'm not going to do it here, of course, but you can walk the pulse. You need a bit of space around you, and you can conduct at the same time and vocalize the music. Tam, pa, 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 sort of singing. But not actual singing, it's just the sort of thing that conductors do when they're holding a rehearsal. So you're allowing your whole body to feel the music, because rhythm can't exist just in the head. It has to go through the body, it has to be physical. So I hope that's given you a few thoughts, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon for the next video. Thank you so much for watching.